Hello, January 11th here, and I want to talk about sprayers with you for a minute. The real thing is there are no sprayers here. We're not talking about a given sprayer. We're talking about spraying for an orchard. And before we talk about money, you want to talk about your expectations, or as we used to say in the business, your requirements, which I don't really like that word. What do you expect? So I'm going to go down a list, and then I will copy that list below in the comment section so you can look it over and ask yourself, what are my expectations before I spend money? The first one is volume. Just how much spray material do you need to lug around? Are you going to try and spray the orchard all with one tank? Or is weight a limiting factor? And you only can lift so much, so how much can you lift when you consider the weight of the volume of spray along with the weight of the sprayer itself? Now, that volume, if you're towing behind, obviously the physical weight isn't as much, but you have to be able to control that weight going up and down a hill. So the weight of your tractor is still a player in how good you are on the brakes. So volume is weight and coverage. You're going to hear different kinds of sprayers covered differently. That is, conservatively you say how much spray per tree, which comes on to the issue of calibration. But on the issue of spray per tree, something I just found out, was explained to me a couple years into this, is pesticide manufacturers say volume per acre. And I'm like, I got really little trees. What are they talking about? And that volume per tree is really how much pesticide per 100 gallons. Okay, so they consider an acre a 100-gallon investment when you're spraying trees. But you may find that you can cover all your trees in the beginning with 40 gallons. So now you have to adjust the amount of pesticide appropriately. So I'll just leave you with that. So volume covers weight and coverage. Those two things play together. Then there's calibration. Cheap sprayers can't be calibrated. They don't have regulators on them. They don't have calibrated spray nozzles. They're good at killing weeds and not much more. So I'll just say you need a sprayer that has a pressure regulator on it. And that regulator makes sure that when you pull the trigger, the pressure at the nozzle stays constant. You pull the trigger, it doesn't suddenly drop off and pick up again. You get constant pressure out the nozzle. And then when you put in different nozzle tips, you can change nozzles. You can adjust accordingly. I use different nozzles throughout the season, and I keep records of that. And I say, what did I set the pressure at? 40 pounds per square inch. Which nozzle did I use? 6510. Okay, these are the things you need to do. And you need to learn about sprayer calibration. Lots of videos on YouTube. And when you take your pesticide training for your certificate, you learn about sprayer calibration. It's not difficult. It's about diligence. You need to do it. Pressure regulation, you need a pressure regulator. You want that as you're going along. Let's say you slow down a bit. The PTO pump slows down a bit. Until it gets below a critical point, you want to maintain that pressure constantly going to your spray nozzle, okay? So, again, when you pull the trigger and you watch that pressure gauge, you don't want to see it move much, if at all. You want it to stay solid, whether there's fluid going out the nozzle or not, okay? That's important. What mode of application are you going to work in? I've got notes here to myself. There's ground spraying, which is great for weeds, for insects if you have row crops and the like, but that's when you have boom and you have nozzles going down. You have a wand, which has been my weapon of choice over the years, where it's a wand. You know, you're spraying around like that, and you're covering the trees with a wand. It's probably one of the oldest methods of applying, other than powders, of applying a pesticide. And then you have air blast. Air blast is when you are mixing the spray material with a large volume of air, and it's going out as a fog. And the beautiful part about this is it really penetrates the tree's canopy and it covers a lot of area fast. Also, you can fog to the left, fog to the right, fog go all the way around, but it covers a lot of area. They are typically significantly more expensive machines, and you might not need it because if you're like in my case, I have small trees and I have tight rows, and if I were to try and run a commercial air blast down those rows, I take the leaves off the trees. If I had made my rows wider, I might be able to use a small air blast. So wait and see. But you want to take a look at them. Air blast is really nice, but it's a significant price change. And if you can do it with the wand, you just might decide to do it with the wand. The other thing with air blast is how you're going to power it. Is it going to be powered by the tractor? Then you need more horsepower in your tractor. Or does it have its own engine? So these things play together. But again, what you've got is you've got a ground application, which are nozzles spraying down. You have a wand, which has a different tip, and it might put out a fan, or it might put a cone shape out. And you have air blast, which generates a huge fog of material behind you. Does the sprayer accept standard spray nozzles? This is big. Cheap sprayers don't. And when I say cheap, I mean Tractor Supply, what's the brand name? Fimco. Fimco gives you a sprayer with that metal tip on the end, and you can't put standard calibrated nozzles in there. That's what you're stuck with. The other thing with that is it doesn't accept screens. You can't put a filter in there in front of the tip to keep it from clogging at the last moment in case something in the hose gets up there, and then suddenly you got that thing shooting off to one side. It's good for weeds. It's good for weeds. So you want a nozzle, and this also applies to if you have a down sprayer. You want to be able to put filters in there, and you really want to be able to put in calibrated nozzles so you know how much material you're putting down over what area and how long your tank is going to last, because you have a regulator too. So that's important. Do you have volume filtration? You want to have good filtration before the pump. Certain store, Fimco and the like, they use that little round screen that you get on a garden hose. That's cute. It's not really very effective. You want a large sump-like filter to collect and not clog up so quickly because you have better things to do than get off the tractor and be cleaning the filter. And remember, you've got pesticide in there. You don't want to be messing around with what's in the tank when you're out in the orchard because you don't want to spill. That stuff is supposed to go on your trees. So get something with a decent pre-filter in there. Do you want an electric or a power takeoff pump or a gas engine on the back? You know, some of these are self-powered. The kind of pump is really kind of big because it determines how much pressure you have at the nozzle. It determines the volume you're going to be able to go, how well can you regulate it. Because if you put on a big tip, even if a pressure regulator, your flow rate may exceed what your pump can hold pressure at, and you won't get the right pattern that you wanted. There are big electric pumps. They're kind of nice, but they don't come stock. I've never seen some of the big 2.5 gallon and larger pumps that do 2.5 gallons at 40 gallons, at 40 psi. I have not seen those stock on a sprayer. So if you buy a Fimco and you're going to beef it up like I did my 40 gallon, I spent a lot of money replacing a lot of parts because they just were not up to the performance levels that I needed for volume and pressure and regulation and agitation. It's not a sprayer if it doesn't have agitation. Agitation is the ability of the sprayer to support spraying at the pressure you want it to, and at the same time circulating a decent quantity of fluid around in the tank to keep suspension suspended, wettable powders, surround and the like, and just keep things agitated so they don't settle out at all in solution. That's really important. A hose that just comes off the bypass and dumps into the drain is not agitation. That's just a pump return. It's not the same thing. Agitation will have an inductor nozzle that you'll have a tiny little nozzle to shoot and it will draw fluid in behind it, and it will constantly be picking up and circulating the fluid in the tank. That's really important stuff. So what else have I got here? So we have volume, calibration, regulation, which mode you want to spray at. Does it accept standard nozzles? You want to learn about that? Do you have good filtration before the pump and at the wand? Do you have filtration so that you're not clogging up the works? You have an investment of equipment here. What kind of a pump are you going to have? Electric, power takeoff, built-in engine? And does it have good agitation? These are all things you need to ask yourself. What do I expect? What do I want? The pump we're going to be talking about later, I'll show you some pictures of my pump I'm taking out of service, which is an early 40-gallon Fimco, and I'll show you the mods I did to it. And then after I get it assembled, I'll show you what I'm doing to the new Workhorse, because it doesn't meet all of this. It meets enough of this that I can hack it to meet all of my expectations. My biggest one, it's easy to do the wand. I'm taking the Fimco wand and throwing it away and putting a different brand wand on it. That's easy. It has a pressure regulator on it. It's got a PTO pump. I've got volume. It needs a real agitator. So my return from the pump is actually going to get fed through an agitation jet. Okay, I'm going to be doing that. So it's mostly there. It's a much better value, but it was almost $1,000 more than the Fimco. Money does matter at some point, but if you don't know what you want to begin with and you don't know how you can make it work, starting off with the price is not the right place to be. Don't say, I can't afford that. No, figure out what you want. Figure out what you need, okay? Then start looking for solutions, because the market is changing constantly. There are sprayers on the market now that weren't there 3 years ago, at price points that didn't exist 3 years ago. So don't say you can't until you actually know, what do I need, and shop it out. And if you talk to a salesperson and they say it should, they don't know what they're talking about. Either it does or it doesn't meet your expectations. I've talked to a tech rep at a pump company. I'm sorry, but at the end of the day, I left knowing that man does not know how people use pumps. All he knows is their pump, but he doesn't know how people use it. You have got to be smarter than a salesman. And I say that with all respect, because there are some good salespeople out there, but there's a lot of slick people looking for a buck. Don't fall for them, please. Don't fall for a good deal, because a good deal will bite you later. Pay me now, pay me later. So that's all I've got for today. I wish you well. Look down in the comments, remarks rather, and you'll see my little list of things to ask yourself when you're looking for a sprayer. And bye-bye for now. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.